The Naira closed at 525 Naira to a dollar at the parallel market on Wednesday after the Central Bank of Nigeria announced the discontinuation of forex sales to bureau de change operators on Tuesday. Now, the Apex Bank says it will channel a portion of the weekly allocations given to BDCs to banks. Emmanuel Odiaka, CEO of ECOB Capital, joins me to discuss the latest developments at the FX market. Emmanuel, thank you for taking the time out to join us today. Very briefly, I'd like to just start with your thoughts, initial thoughts, when the CBN made that announcement. Very briefly, please.
Yes, the Monetary Policy Committee, of course, did let the whole world know that they were not satisfied with the activities of the bureau de change because of its perceived illicit transactions and non-channeling of funds to the real sector that needed the USD that's been being channeled to the BDCs. So that's exactly why the hammer of the Apex Bank came upon the BDCs.
Well, let's quickly talk about,
and, of course, the initial...
Sorry about that. Let's just quickly talk about, the ripple effects that are still occurring after that announcement. Now, of course, we know that the banks, we heard that CBN has disbursed $200 million to the banks. But there are questions that have arisen, concerns about the banks themselves. Even though the CBN has assured of, strict monitoring, many people still say, can the banks be trusted with this? But what are your thoughts?
Well, at such times, we would want to expect that the banks would put its acts together and be patriotic. They have always been patriotic. We expect that they will work hand in hand with the Apex Bank at times like this and ensure that its policy is implemented to the fullest. So we are confident that the banks will do the right thing and, of course, ensure that the transmission process is credible and gets to the beneficiaries.
And what about rate convergence? We're still on that journey. What does this mean for rates convergence? At the NAFEX window, INE window, the Naira did appreciate yesterday somewhere around 4.11 to the greenback. But in your thoughts, what does all of this mean for rates convergence?
Well, let's start. Sincerely, I do think that talking about rate convergence, we are still far away from it. The INE window, like you said, presently trading at about 4.11 is far away from where the parallel market is. We cannot put away the activities of the parallel market. Nigerians still see that market as a microcosm of the whole foreign exchange market, and a whole lot of activities meeting people's legitimate demands still happens in that market. So convergence is not going to happen right away. We have to see how far CBN goes with its new policy of not selling by USD to the bureau de change, and how much that market tilts away from the INE window. Of course, it depreciated 3.9% as at close of yesterday, and as much as possible, as liquidity dries out from that market, we are likely going to see the Naira depreciate further.
It's funny you said, I was just going to ask you, in your opinion now, realistically, what are the positives that could come out of this? I know the CBN is trying to protect the Naira and, of course, the FX reserves, but realistically, what kind of positives could come out from this?
Well, one of the positives is that the Nigerian people want to ensure that every dollar sold in the market gets to the right users. So the extra $100 million that will be coming from the Apex Bank, if well channeled, will go a long way in ameliorating the sufferings of people who need the dollar for legitimate reasons. So what we should be talking about is the ability of the Apex Bank to meet up the pent-up demands that we will see in the coming days. The market will be looking at if the Apex Bank will increase its volume sales to banks and what other actions it will be taking to ensure that every US dollar sold at this point in time gets to legitimate users.
Now, Emmanuel, we're hearing that the BDCs may be planning to meet with the central bank governor soon. I imagine that is probably on the table. So my question to you is, could both parties reach some kind of a compromise? Recall that in 2016, this same ban occurred, And all the reasons that the CBN gave on Tuesday for why those BDCs were banned from the market or kicked out of the market were the same reasons given in 2016. But somehow, the BDCs found themselves back in the good graces of the CBN. Do you see that happening this time around?
Well, we cannot rule out a compromise from the Apex Bank. The BDCs are still existing. Their licenses have not been revoked, so they are still a legitimate corporate organization meeting its own threshold. Whether the Apex Bank will budge to an immediate sale of USD to the BDCs, I don't see that happening now. I think the governor is pained for reasons well known to market participants. Also do think from events that have been happening that this move did just not occur. We understand that banks have been made to set up retail desks before now. So the governor has been preparing and waiting patiently to strike, and we think it's going to hold forth for a long while.
So if that is the case, if that is the new status quo, how does this change or reshape the FX market going forward? We know that there is still pent-up demand. Importers could suffer. Those with legitimate Form Ms may still not be able to get, dollars for their transactions and, import-export business, etc. How do you see this reshaping the market? So
for the time being, at the short end of the events that are occurring now, we think end users are going to suffer. Already, the USD has pushed to 525 as at press time today. We also understand that a whole lot of users that do not qualify for the CBN dollar window will continue to access this market. So how it changes the FS landscape is that we are going to see a lot more imported inflation because these prices will continue to push up. So the key factors there is the liquidity, how much the Apex Bank is willing to push into the system. For instance, the medical bill, there are no restrictions to medical bill, but banks hardly sell $15,000 to an individual at a tranche. So what if you have a medical bill that crosses up to $50,000, what happens? On the educational side, so we are talking about transactions that qualify for FX. On the education side, you are compelled to sell just $15,000 per quarter. So if your child is going to an Ivy League school and need $150,000, what happens? So these are the immediate questions the Apex banks will need to address. Channel liquidity into the banking system, expand the limit on sales to items that qualify, and make bank meet this legitimate need. If the Apex bank do this, we would see a good traction and appreciation of the Naira.